All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Galindo from the FYE podcast team, and I'm joined by my fantastic co host today, Natasha, which I believe this is not your first time, right, on the podcast?
It's not my first time, but I haven't been on the podcast since last semester, so it has been a while.
Nice.
Mm.
We're happy to have you back. And as always, I'm also joined by Gerson, of course. And we're welcomed by a very special guest today, all the way from the Learning Center. We have Mr. Julio Mireles, I believe.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so
Want
much for inviting me.
Of course, yeah. Want to give us a little like backstory on like how you came to UTRGV and what the Learning Center offers overall to students?
Sure. Um, I actually have a very interesting little story of how I came to UTRGV. Um, I've been here since the beginning of not the beginning, but since it was called UTB TSC, which is way back when. I was there towards the end of that. So I was actually a student there, and when I was a junior, um, I wasn't looking for work or anything, but I got an email saying, "Hey, you were recommended for this as a writing tutor. Would you be interested in applying?" And I was like, "All right, sure, I'll go ahead and do that." Not really thinking anything of it, but just like, sure, I'll try it. I did the interview, I got the job, and then I've been working there ever since in a variety of different positions. At the Learning Center. So I started off as a writing tutor, and then they've given me opportunities to do different things. So for a while, I was a program coordinator with a big program called Link to Success. So that was a big program. And then for a while, I was actually located at TSC, uh, Texas Sophomore College. I was employed by UTRGV, but I was located at TSC. So I did that for 2 years, heading up a program there. And then I came back. I was actually back on campus, kind of helping out with a couple of different things. And eventually, I got a job at the Learning Center working as a program specialist. So I'm now a program specialist here at the Learning Center for the Liberal Arts and Business Lab. So basically I help take care of the Brownsville Lab for liberal arts and business. So anything that liberal arts, business, and foreign languages. So we take care of anything that relates to those services for tutoring. So, so so It's yeah, interesting. that's kind of how I came to it. And the Mm. second question was relating to what the Learning Center does, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So basically, I like to describe what the Learning Center does as um, what the Learning Center does. Our main goal is to not necessarily just give students answers. People tend to think of our services as or the idea of tutoring as, oh yeah, I come, I sit down, I ask you a question, you give me the answer, and then that's it. Right? They tend to think of it that way. Um, so sometimes when they come in, they're a little bit disappointed when they find out how it actually works. But if they stick with it, they find that it's much more beneficial for them. The way that we describe it is we're there to give you the tools to become better learners. So we're going to help you figure out what it is that you're missing. Let's say you come in for math and you're struggling with a particular, let's say, formula, right? Or a particular problem that you, for some reason, you can't figure it out. We're going to work with you to figure out why you're getting stuck, identify the problem for that, so that next time you get stuck, you're going to avoid that problem with you're going to avoid getting stuck, right? Mm. So we're kind of giving you the tools to be able to identify what is stopping you, in other words, right? Right. So So more like helping you understand the whole thing. yeah, exactly. So we want to make sure that you understand the whole thing as opposed to just giving you the answer for one small part of it, right? So Right. that's the big thing. So we cover a variety of different services. Obviously, like I said, we cover liberal arts, business, and foreign languages, but we also cover the math and science as well. So we cover a variety of different courses and stuff like that. And we don't just do it in the labs. We also offer it in the classroom. So we have what are called PLTL. We have what's called supplemental instruction. That's called SI. We also have performance-based supplemental instruction. So we are in the classrooms as well. We also have embedded, where students are in the classroom and they help out students based on the professor's instructions, right? So we do a variety of different things involved with the students because we want to make sure that students are being helped in every way possible.
And when you're enrolling as a student in one of those classes, do you know that it's like an embedded class, or how do you look for those?
For example, if it is a required course, if it's going to be, you are notified if it's going to have a course attached to it. For example, for PLTL, you will know that there's something attached to it outside of the classroom, right? So let's say you have your normal chemistry course. If you have a session with the PLTL leaders, you will be notified like, hey, this is your lecture. And then if you look at the schedule to say this is your lecture and this is your session time, your PLTL session time. So it'll show on there. For supplemental instruction, we offer a variety of times. For supplemental instruction is voluntary, for example, so you don't have to come in. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. Performance-based, you are given a different options to come in. So again, it's not like you're, and if you can't come in, we do work with you, right? And this is just for select courses, right? So if you look at the syllabus for performance-based, for example, it'll tell you like, this is, you are required to attend SI or performance-based sessions, so many number of times before the end of the semester or before the first test or whatever. That's you'll be notified beforehand. So that's usually how it's done with that.
Where I guess like one of my questions is, where could a student go to begin to seek out like these like this help? Like where like what resources would they need to go to?
Yeah, that's a good question, especially with the pandemic and everything. Normally, I would recommend that you come to our locations. We are located in the Brownsville and Edinburgh campuses, but because of the pandemic, the COVID situation, we are offering our services online. The easiest way that I recommend that all students find out about our services, look at our schedules to see if we do offer a particular course that they're looking for help in, is they go to our website. So our website is typically found on the UTRGV website. It's utrgv.edu/tutoring. If you go to our website there, you'll be able to find our schedules. You'll be able to find links to to our labs, our online labs. They are on Blackboard Collaborate. So there'll be links for the different labs, for the math, for the science, and for the liberal arts, business, and foreign languages labs. So they'll be located on there. And if you are interested, for example, in person, we do offer that as well. But again, because of the COVID situation, that is a little bit more limited. So we just ask that you, ask that you look at the schedule to see if it fits your schedule, right? Because they are here, but because we can't have all the tutors here at the same time, we don't want to have too many people here at the same time. They're segmented, so they come in. We only have a certain number of tutors at a certain time, so it's a little bit more limited. But that schedule is also available online. And if the schedule doesn't work with you, you're more than welcome to email us. So email our email, I guess. You can email us, and our email is Learning Center. Let me see. Learning Center at utrgv.edu. Just send us a quick email to say, hey, I need help with this particular subject or this particular course. Is there anyone that can help me? And usually we send it off to the correct supervisor, the supervisor, to see if that there is someone available.
And what can students expect when they do make an appointment with a tutor? Like, how can they prepare for their tutoring session?
Yes, that's a very good question. In person and online are pretty much the same. Make sure that you have your documents, right? Make sure that if you are working with a particular your worksheets or whatever, make sure that you have that ready. Just have your material ready. If you are coming in person, obviously make sure that you bring in your mask. Make sure that you are prepared that way. Make sure that you're not sick, or feeling sick, that kind of thing. And in terms of that, it's just the biggest thing that we recommend is just be prepared with questions. Just know what you're going to ask if you can. I know sometimes, for example, when I would come into the math lab, I wouldn't have specific questions because I would just be stuck in general, right? Like, hey, I don't know how to do this, right?
Sometimes you're so lost that you don't even know what to ask.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this whole thing, show me, right? So sometimes it's hard, right? But if you can at least have, like, for example, if you're coming in for a particular like college algebra or whatever, have at least a couple of sample problems so that they can work with you on them, right? So they can see how you work, and maybe they can identify where it is that you're having problems. And it's the same thing with online. With online, you can still share your documents. It can still be visual. It's not mandatory. Like, you don't have to have your camera on, but you can still share your documents. So the way that we typically recommend it is, once you get in contact with the tutor, you can give them your email. No, they can give you their email. Yeah, they can give you their email, and you can send them the documents, and then they'll upload it to the screen so you can go over it together, for example. You can also just, like, if you have like a little camera that you can move around, you can do that as well. But it's easier if it's just like a static image, because that way they can write on it and they can kind of go over it with you. So it's flexible. There are ways that we can do it with you, and they also have like a digital whiteboard that they can kind of draw on if that's necessary.
And I was going to ask, so how long do these sessions like normally last?
These sessions, the tutoring sessions, the one-on-one tutoring sessions, they can go anywhere from, I want to say, from like maybe like 10 minutes to 30 minutes. They can go on longer, but it really just depends on how many students are there at a particular time. There are some times where, especially like pre-pandemic, for the larger subjects, if you were there with a math tutor or a science tutor and they had a large group of students, they would only be able to work with you for about 30 minutes, and then they have to move on to make sure that every student is serviced. So I'm not sure how it is now, but I would imagine that it's very similar to the same thing. If there's more than one student that they're working with, they probably have a limited amount of time before they need to move on. So I would say anywhere from maybe around 15 to 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. And does the Learning Center do any kind of I know you all like are pretty active on social media. I see that you all did a like a workshop just a couple of days ago. So do you want to like elaborate more on what like kind of online sessions the Learning Center does?
Oh yes. We typically, we're very active with workshops and stuff like that. One of the challenges that we always have is getting people to come in. And again, that's not anyone's fault. It's just hard to get the word out about those kind of services. We're so inundated with information, just about things that are going on campus, that it's hard to really focus in on one thing. But we do have workshops for our, right now we're focusing on a series of workshops that our peer coaches are doing. So we're doing some on test taking, if I remember correctly, dealing with the pandemic, like dealing with your classes in the middle of a pandemic. How do you handle that? And let me see, because I have a little flyer. I did not download it. So yeah, let me see. If you just give me a second. Yeah, so we are doing one this February 26th. I don't know when the podcast is going to come up, but we are doing one on how to survive your first year of college. So that's a pretty big one that we're doing, and that really does apply to your audience, your first year. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of tips and tricks for like how do you handle the first year, and I know this year, or especially with the pandemic going on, there's another added layer of difficulty with dealing with that, because it's difficult already making the transition from high school to college, but then you add on to the fact that it's not just making that transition, it's also adjusting to the fact that everything is online. There's limited interactions with students, with fellow students, and limited interactions with the professors. And a lot of it is you're on your own, right? It feels like you're on your own. There are services available, but it feels like you're on your own a lot. And there's limited guidance. So there is that added level of like, okay, basically it feels like you're kind of going on hard mode, right? Like, okay, this is a little bit like, where's the what do you call it? The safety thing where you fall.
Net.
Huh?
Safety net?
Yeah, where's the safety net, right? Because I feel like there should be a safety net, right? But it's hard mode, so there is no safety net, right? So well, it feels like it, right? But there is a safety net. It's just harder to see, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of address a lot of those things. Is like, how do you handle that? And we just kind of remind you the resources that are available still. How do you use them and why they're important? So one of the big things, obviously, is remembering to use the Learning Center, right? It's still available. It's still there. It might not be in the way that you're accustomed to, but we are still available. And we are, still more than willing to help you in any way that we can to make sure that you do succeed. And if there are technical issues with, your camera, with your internet, again, we are always willing to kind of work with you. We're not super strict on like, oh, you only have to use this one thing, and if it doesn't work, then that's it, right? We will work with you. For example, sometimes there are problems with mics. I've seen it countless times already where people have their headphones on as the mic and it doesn't work, right? If for whatever reason that happens, one of the cool things with Blackboard Collaborate is you can use your phone. So we'll show you how to do that, and then you can use your phone as the mic. So there are things like that where it's flexible. So don't be afraid to kind of come in and just get the help that you need. So that's one of the presentations that we're doing. We also have a series of other ones. I just need to pull it up. Trying to remember. Oh, I can't find it, but yeah. So we are doing one on test taking, time management. That's another one. Test taking, time management.
Well, that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and something else. But I do recommend that you visit our website, because that's where we'll post up the flyers, and that's where the links will be available. It's just going to be one flyer, so it'll show the remaining 3 workshops that we're doing in March. So just check our website, and it'll probably also be up on the Facebook page, for the Learning Center, and also for our Instagram, and also the FYE page. It'll probably be up there as well, because we work with them pretty closely to advertise our services, our workshops, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I know this week we were posting we were sharing some of the posts that you all were doing, especially the time management one. I believe that one was on Wednesday, just this past Wednesday. So that's like really, I feel like for time management specifically for an online only semester is so important, because there's a lot of self-discipline that goes into it. So I think we always talk about resources that students might not know are there, and like they just feel like there's no safety net, like you said, for those kinds of students. But I think the Learning Center definitely, and like let's everyone like just take a deep breath, know that they're not alone, know that there's a dozen other students in the same predicament as them, and some of us just need that supplemental instruction to keep us going.
Yeah, and really that's what it is. It's scary sometimes, like taking that step forward, and sometimes we have like a mental block. Like I still have it sometimes, of just like, I know what I need to do, and this happens to me sometimes at work, right? Like I know what I need to do, but let me just do this other thing instead. It's not like it's not a negative thing. It just is what it is, right? But sometimes we just kind of have to force ourselves to take that positive step forward and just do it, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, let me just look up the website, see what the services are, and then, or just ask the question, like, hey, I'm talking to someone that maybe, for example, our workshop on Friday, maybe I can just pop in real quick and just ask a question, and then just get that out of the way, and then I can pop back out. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, and you'll find that it kind of switches something in your head, like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So now I know what I need to do. I need to do a series of things in order for me to be able to succeed, right? So it's that first step, like with anything, right? I sometimes compare it to working out also, right? It's consistency. You have to be consistent with what you're doing in order for it for really to take hold. So if you're going to go to tutoring, you have to go more than once, right? You can't just lift weights once and then expect, to get jacked, right? That's just not the way it's going to work, right? So it's the same thing with anything. If you want to succeed academically, it's not just a matter of reading a book, right, and expecting that to kind of equal to getting A's, right? It's consistency. It's doing the work, right? It's doing those reps. In this case, they're mental reps, right? So it's just like that. It's just like it with anything, right? You just gotta adjust, and there are going to be certain points where your strategies aren't as effective anymore. That's another thing that we notice sometimes, right? We come in from high school to college with certain strategies that we've used that have worked for us, and so I'm going to do it now again. A common one is repetition, right? Like I'm going to write down what's on the PowerPoint on a piece of paper, and I'm going to keep writing it down until I remember it, right? But again, that can only take us so far, right?
Yeah.
So if I stretch that working out metaphor even further, you can't just keep doing the same reps, same weights, and expecting the same results, right? It's at a certain point, it's you're not going to get results anymore, right? It's so you're going to have to change your strategy. How can I push myself further to get better growth, right? In this case, mental growth, right? How can I do that, right? Where did I help you do that? Where did I kind of ask you questions to get you there, to give you the tools, to give you the strategies to get that bulk, right? Get that mental strength going, right? Yeah. So I think I stretched that metaphor for far enough, right?
So honestly, it made me realize, because for me, I feel like my classes are getting harder, but it's not that they're getting harder. I feel like it's just the techniques that I've been using to study probably aren't as effective anymore. And like once you said that, like my face was like, oh my God, I get you.
Yeah, so sometimes it's that, and to be a little bit kinder to yourself. It's sometimes the classes are getting a little bit more difficult, but it's also being aware of, are my strategies not working anymore, right? That's also something to be aware of. So like you had that little light bulb moment of like, oh, maybe I need to change some things, right? Yeah.
I guess this is like the $1,000,000 question, but what are like the most fundamental, easy tips that you recommend to students that just are really scared about their finals, like moving like later this semester? Like, what basic tips can you offer like a student that just wants to know like how they can improve being prepared for their finals?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The biggest thing I think is just be prepared. Don't wait till the last minute is a big one. Oftentimes we take things kind of in piecemeal. We like to get by. So, for example, if we're doing well on our like discussion questions, we tend to take that as me. I'm doing okay, but we also need to examine how are you doing on your tests, and we don't want to be too hard on ourselves. We want to look at not just the grade, but also, are you making progress? Even if you're not necessarily happy with, oh, I didn't get the grade that I wanted, but you also want to ask yourself, am I making any progress at all? Because if you're not making any progress at all, then that's where you kind of want to say, I need to change my strategies, right? Where can let me look back at what I'm doing to see where I can change, and let me see if changing those strategies is going to lead to a better outcome before you get to the finals. Because if you can do that before you get to the finals, then you'll be in a more comfortable place, right? So I definitely recommend that, like, adjust your strategy before you get to the finals. That way you have a better hold of the content, right? And the other thing that I would recommend is just go to the labs. Just go to our tutoring labs more often before finals. Don't wait till the last minute, because oftentimes, again, you'll find that there's so much content that you need to kind of cover that there's just not enough time, right? So I recommend that you kind of identify where it is that you're kind of falling behind a little bit, and just spend some time kind of going to the lab and asking questions. That's kind of what the other big thing is. Just ask questions. Ask questions to professors. Professors, I think I find, are underused resource. A lot of professors are very, very happy to help you, and it also helps you it gives you, it's sometimes we don't realize this, it's an added benefit if you make yourself known to the professor, because if you kind of make them remember who you are, they're more likely to want to help you out later, right? If you wait till the last minute and something goes wrong at the last minute, and they haven't heard from you all semester, they're less likely to be less lenient with you if they only hear from you when all of a sudden there's a problem, right? So you want to ask them questions all throughout the semester so they know your name, they know that you've been trying. That gives you a greater edge than someone who is only there when they want to just tell them, like, hey, I have a 67, can you give me 3 points? And they've never talked to that professor before. They've never made the effort to really ask any questions beforehand. So why is the professor going to want to work with you if you haven't shown that you've made the effort, right? So those are some things that I recommend, because those are some things that I've seen work. And they're not necessarily tied into finals specifically, but they are things that are tied towards your classes. So definitely do that. Make contact with the professors. Make yourself known. And then for finals, the big thing is spread out your studying. Spread it out. Don't try to do it all the night before. I know I've heard it countless times where students will say, oh yeah, but that's how I do my best learning, right? I do my best learning the night before, and that's how I always pass, right? I've heard it a lot of times, right? And maybe you do pass, but my first question would be, how much of that information do you actually retain in the long run? And then how much of that grade could that grade have been better if you had given yourself more time to really understand the material, right? Because, oh, great, it's great that you passed, but it was that 72. Could that 72 have been better if you had given yourself 2 weeks instead of maybe 2 days, right? So give yourself more time. Break down the material that's going to be covered in the final into chunks. We often call it chunking, right? So that way you don't overwhelm yourself. So if you're doing a history course, for example, and you're covering chapters 2 through, keep it simple, 2 to 10, right? You don't want to read chapters 2 to 10 the night before, right? So give yourself a couple of days, maybe a week or two, and just say, okay, chapter 2, I'm going to break it down into an outline, and I'm going to give myself 2 days to do that, right? That way you're reviewing the content, you're giving yourself time to look it over again, and you're also summarizing it as you're reading it, and you're writing it down, right? So that goes back to that repetition, but you're doing it in a better, more, I guess, higher level thinking way than you would have before, which is just writing down what's in the book or highlighting everything, right? So stuff like that. With math, it's the same thing. So if you're expected to cover, all these concepts, give yourself time to go over each of these concepts. So on one day, you want to go over, what do they call it? Quadrilateral? Yeah, I think that's what it's called. You want to give yourself maybe 1 or 2 days to make sure that you have that stuff down, that you can do the problems without getting too stuck, right? And if you do get stuck, guess what? You have time to go to the lab, to ask your professor, hey, I'm getting stuck here. I don't know why this is the way that it is, right? That gives you more time to kind of flesh everything out. So that's my biggest thing for finals, is give yourself time to ask questions. Give yourself time to really get in depth. That way you don't get surprised when you're in finals and the questions aren't what you expected, right? Because oftentimes you're going to find that, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, right? Maybe not on finals, but I have heard this with like tests, right? It's not fair because what was on the test is not what the professor went over. Have you guys heard that before?
I've said it before.
Yeah, right. And maybe sometimes it's true. Maybe it's just out of left field. But what I realized as I was talking to these students is that I've realized that when they say that, what that means, and they don't realize it, is that they've explored the content in a very particular way, in a very narrow way. So they're going over what the professor went over. They're going over what the PowerPoint went over. And the unstated goal of what the professor wants you to do, he's not going to hold your hand, or don't want to say he, they're not going to hold your hand and tell you this, but you need to read the book. You need to ask yourself questions beyond what's going on in the lecture. The lecture is just an abbreviated version of what's expected of you. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like he's just giving you, they're just giving you the tools. It's up to you to take what they've covered, the broad outlines of it, and then flesh out. It's up to you to flesh out the details. So when people say it's not fair, what they really mean is, what it really means is that they've missed a whole nother level of the content. They've missed a whole nother level. Have you guys heard of the iceberg? Right? So it's like this is the top, and there's like, oh yeah, so these are the basic things, right? And then at the bottom, underneath the water, is all this other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And that's basically what a classroom is a lot of these times. This is the stuff that they're going to show you, and then all the stuff that's on the water, it's up to you to find, right? So that's what it is, right? So yeah, I forgot what I was trying to say, but yeah, it's sometimes stuff is unstated, but if we all work together, if we ask for help, we can do better. We can do better in these classes. So, and that's what the Learning Center is there for. And I'm really glad that you guys are here to kind of help these students out, to kind of give them a helping hand. Because when I was there the first year, I was lucky because I kind of knew what to expect. But sometimes people don't have it so easy. So it's good that it's good to remind students about the resources that are available.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No. You've been really informative, Mr. Mireles.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm speechless. I think overall, I think students coming in, especially this spring and next fall, hopefully it could be more half and half online and in person, and hopefully more students take advantage of the Learning Center's resources. And once again, that's at UTRGV Learning Center across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and of course utrgv.edu/tutoring. And hopefully, if you're in any need for any supplemental instruction, you can go there. And of course, also email. You could email the Learning Center at learningcenter@utrgv.edu. But overall, I think we covered everything. Mr. Julio Mireles, we're so thankful that you were able to join us today. Mm-hmm. And we hope to have you on again when we come again for fall of next semester and more students are getting enrolled at UTRGV. But overall, thank you so much.
Yes. And again, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for inviting the Learning Center in general. We're always happy to, kind of spread the word. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah. And we'll have everything, your workshops and your social media, we'll have everything in our descriptions of the podcast so students can get on there. And we'll continue to, of course, share the great workshops that you all are hosting to students on our social media. So thank you once again.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.